Good morning, everyone, to Stock Talk. It's Andrew and Austin here to catch you up on a couple big themes out there. We don't always want to just be talking about specific junior mining companies or innovation companies. We want to give out as much free information and knowledge that we have. We've got a couple big themes that have been in the news for people to catch up on. Austin, how are you doing? And we'll start off with you.
Doing great, Andrew. It's a beautiful Wednesday and a good week so far. And the Biden government announced that they're going to spend $17 billion researching lithium-ion batteries. So it's a great day to be looking at lithium.
Yes. So yes, big infrastructure plan. There's of course every time either side puts out any kind of plan of any kind, there's going to be fighting. But yes, a big infrastructure plan is being rolled out. Tell me more.
Yeah. So essentially what happened back in February when the Biden government rolled in is they introduced a 100-day commission into America's critical supply lines. And that was done by a bunch of different departments of the government. I know the Department of Health was involved. The Department of Economics was involved. There are a bunch of different departments putting their input in. It's about a 120-page document that they rolled out. And they identified 4 key areas that they are going to target for investment to strengthen America's critical supply lines. And those 4 areas are large capacity lithium batteries, rare earth metals, semiconductors, and advanced pharmaceutical ingredients. So that's kind of the main target of what they're going to roll out. A lot of spending. I mean, when you look at kind of across the board, I know there's more to this sort of $2 trillion package that they're putting together, but these are going to be some of the core elements that they're going to be looking at going forward.
Lots of wonderful things there. The one thing that highlighted that was quite disconcerting because what's this pharmaceutical angle? Tell me more. Do you know anything about that?
So I know that was, it's interesting when you've got all the, the Department of Energy is involved, the Department of the Interior is involved, and then you've got the Department of Health and Human Services being involved as well. And it's a $60 million plan to develop platform technologies to increase domestic manufacturing for API. So it's an interesting angle to take on things. I don't know much more about that side of things. It was, like you said, kind of the alarm bell that rang, whereas I was very excited to hear about, lithium batteries and rare earth metals and stuff like that. So I'd be interested to kind of see more into what exactly that $60 million advanced pharmaceutical ingredients they're going to be looking at is. Because
it's not a lot of money.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's not. When you're talking about $2 trillion, I mean, 60 million doesn't sound like a lot, really. At the end of the day, it's just a small fraction.
Yes. No, it's just whenever I hear anything like that, my alarm bells go off, and I think, okay, what is going on? Haven't they made enough money in the last year? But let's leave that whole topic alone. Otherwise, we'll get in trouble.
Never make enough money, Andrew.
No, I know. Well, that's true. That's true. That's definitely a sentiment. But here's the flip side of this is that there's definitely some critics of this because a large portion of this isn't infrastructure. So 400 billion of it's going to medical aid of some type, so more of a political medical of that chunk of infrastructure, which I know is definitely stalling the plan. I would have liked to have seen a lot more. Like I think it's 90 billion is going into roads and rail and development of current infrastructure, which I would think the number would be much, much greater if you wanted to actually fix up. And it is. I mean, those are big numbers, but you have to remember it's a big country, and to get the country, fixed, it takes a lot of money. It takes money. Just building roads costs a ton. It's a lot of time and effort. And also we can do them today a lot smarter because we can see that a lot of asphalt can retain a lot of heat. So big cities also, the building themselves push out a lot of carbon. They attract a lot of heat. There's new ways, which is really cool, which is what we look into, is to what kind of ingredients can be used, high tech as well as kind of some lower tech ones, in order to make buildings a lot friendlier that don't emit carbon, that may even suck it in. So there's lots of different ways that this could be used very beneficially. And I see that there was an R&D kind of earmarked amount there as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, so there is a large amount of it that is marked for R&D on a lot of fronts, and the nice part of that I think plays into a lot of what we do and kind of fits the themes that we talk about is there's a huge amount of that that's been earmarked for researching critical minerals, how they can be produced, and where in the United States they can be found and either mined or extracted in some way, shape, or form. So that's fantastic news for a sector that we pay a lot of attention to. But there is further R&D as well. They're going to be looking at, I think it's something like 50 billion into the National Science Foundation, another 70 billion that's being, I can't remember. Oh, Adam's great. He's got it pulled up here. 30 billion into innovation and job creation, 40 billion into upgrading research infrastructure.
Yes.
So, there's a lot of money being put into R&D as well. It's just, it's the Democrats. So there's always going to have to be the social aspect of everything that they do as well. So, that a good portion of that money is going to be earmarked for random.
Well, that's the other flip side is that a large amount of this money is being specifically racially profiled and spent. And that, of course, to anyone would be upsetting because any type of, you're choosing one race to get something over another is always a challenging proposition. Whether you're doing it because of equity, equality, whatever phrase you want to use. It's pretty hard to convince people that you don't consider race an issue, but then you do all of your planning based on race. So that also is a big juncture today in what we're facing today with extreme far left ideas that we've seen in the past fail, and then the rollout of trying to roll some of these out. So like all things, there's good and bad with everything, but there's a ton of good. And to see a lot of the money going into research, into development, into a lot of this new energy look, getting broadband in there, getting a lot of R&D and revolves around energy and getting us into this kind of 5G future city of the world that we like to talk about. So we'll see. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of back and forth, and the devil's always in the details. And regardless of which side, I don't really care of either Republican or the Democrat. Well, they're not really Democrat, far left. Is that they're always sneaking things into these things. If you ever read through half of these things, you'll see that they've got a great bill for something. You think that's what it's about, and then there's this 20% in here that they've jammed something in that either it's arms or a deal over here, or it's this. It's a boondoggle. So that's politics. It's ugly. It's gross, but.
Well, that's exactly the way it goes, and that's why it'll be interesting to see kind of what comes out at the end of this, right? Because I mean, I think Biden's already come out and said that he's no longer talking with Republicans about getting this done. They're going to look at doing it just by using the Democrat majority in the House and the Senate to push it through that way without any Republican support. So what will this look like if they're, what the actual finished product of this is? It could be very different than what we're hearing it is right now. But regardless of which side of the aisle you fall on or what your politics are, it's something that the U.S. has critically needed, I would argue, since the Obama administration, is they've needed this massive inject of cash into their infrastructure system. So hopefully one way or another, something gets passed that is going to benefit the American people and hopefully create a lot of jobs and a lot of economic opportunity as well.
Yeah, and hopefully it gets done. And I go back to this when you hear the Make America Great Again with Trump this is the plan that I thought was going to be injected is let's get our infrastructure house in order, pile a ton of money. Like if you're going to spend the amount of money that Trump started spending, which was a lot, now that's been eclipsed. Now, at least you can say now a big portion of it is actually going towards infrastructure. A lot of it isn't, but a lot is. So at least there's something that's positive, and it's echoing the story that we've been saying for months, for years, of it coming in regards from mining. It comes from mining. That's where this is all coming from. And someone that was just on BNN the other day is Robert Friedland. Now, if you don't know the name, he's a billionaire. He was born in Chicago, but he's very much associated with Canada because of his role in mining. I would urge you to check out the interview he did on BNN. He does all sorts of interviews all the time. If you Google him or put him into YouTube, you'll find all sorts of amazing presentations and speeches he's given. Much like our friend Gianni over at Copperbank talks about the critical need of copper. And you mentioned, just with lithium, there is a copper lithium fight going on in regards to batteries of the future. But on top of that, as we know from graphene and GMG, There's a role for the what do you call it? Aluminum ion and for graphene in this role as well. Never mind the fact that there's this backstory of vanadium redox batteries which are going on. There's a lot happening here, and this is where I want people to focus their attention, is to look at these people, these big names, look at this Biden plan and think, this is what we're rolling out. These are some of the solutions. How can I set myself up and look to see the companies that are providing this, that are exploring for it, doing the R&D, and where is a good place for me to make the kind of returns I want to make?
Yeah, absolutely. It's clear that there's going to be so much growth and opportunity in this sector. Whether people want to accept it or not. Even your top firms in the U.S. are now saying we're heading into a commodity super cycle. It's being backed by the U.S. government. There's tons and tons of money flowing into this sector, which means tons of opportunity for people to get involved if you're looking at the right places in the right plays. And Robert Friedland makes a lot of great points about where this future is going and how everything's going to be put together to build that. And it's that's a great opportunity for people who are, like you said, looking in the right places and creating the right opportunities for themselves by doing the research and putting together their own plans of how, hey, I'm going to throw a little money into this because I think there's a huge potential for growth in copper. I do think there's a huge potential for growth in copper. I think that's a hell of a play, but everyone can make it up for themselves. Hey, I like lithium. I think lithium's a really strong play. We'll get involved over there and see some growth on that side as well.
Yeah, I also like to shout out to people say, where else should I look? The first place, if you have interest, is check out Sprott. I don't work with Sprott. I don't have any relationship with them, but Sprott Capital, I mean, that's, a serious player in this space. And if you reach out to me or Austin, we'll forward you on. There was an interview with Rick Rule, who's now left Sprott, but on good terms. But he's worked at Sprott for a long time. He's a legend in the business. And he's done some great videos lately sharing his insight as to how do I look at some of these juniors, and I've learned a lot from him. I've lucky to have done a couple interviews with him. Real smart guy. He's been around forever. He knows what to look for. Very strong personality. So very entertaining. I would urge you to go take a peek at some of the things that he's done, but reach out to us. We'll save you some time and effort and send you a couple of videos. Because people always ask, where else should I look, Andrew? Sure, you're letting us know some stuff, but if you're really interested, take a look. Rick Rule, check it out on YouTube, and that'll help give you another perspective. And that's what we want to do, is we want to take a look at these big, broad macro events and kind of highlight to those that have been watching for a couple of years or just for a couple of days, is that it isn't just Andrew and Austin saying these things and just dreaming up some ideas. Is we're getting it from these people that are talking about it that don't get the limelight. I mean, they're starting to get it now, and they'll, believe me, in another year, a lot of these names, you're going to hear them a lot more as they roll out these plans and the years following, because it is happening. But it's just tough. I mean, the mainstream news, they're not going to get too ahead of the curve on anything. That's not their job. They report what's happening right now. They report for money. You can just pay them and they'll report for an op-ed piece or for other reasons. But right now, if they're getting attention, this is a good thing and only bolsters our cause. So what is it? Just one final thing, because we wanted to make this one a bit shorter today. You wanted to brush up on, which was very interesting.
Well, it was an interesting thing to kind of dissect and jump into on the Bitcoin angle. And for anyone who's been paying attention to crypto and everything that's been happening on that front, it's been an ugly couple of weeks for crypto. I think almost everyone who's involved in crypto has been getting their ass kicked over the last few days. But an interesting kind of turn of events yesterday, Bitcoin took another 7% hit, and that was on the back of it coming out that the United States government was actually able to track and find the ransom money that was paid to the hackers of was Citadel pipeline. If I think I'm getting the name correct there, in the pipeline down in Georgia that was hacked, and they paid out over $3 million in Bitcoin or something like that. So from my understanding of things, the United States set up a recently new task force. Let me just get the name right here. The Ransomware and Digital Extortion Task Force, recently created, interestingly enough, that just happened to be able to track down a large amount of the Bitcoin that was paid as the ransom amount to get the pipelines turned back on down there in the southern states.
Yeah, and I mean, I always like to play devil's advocate. We like crypto, we like that space, and not necessarily the crypto as a sense of a currency, but the technology of how it uses the blockchain. It is absolutely traceable. It's the most perfect traceable type of product. And we've known that for a long time, despite the claims for the contrary. And if anyone looks back at Silk Road, they'll see how the FBI was able to track him down. It's built for that. It's built to be able to identify every single track and trade that you once you use it. So it is the perfect instrument for control. And it's very quite the opposite of what someone would pitch you as to why you want to do it. Interestingly enough, and I don't have, it's just interesting, is El Salvador today has accepted Bitcoin as legal tender. That is a big deal, and it's not a big deal. I mean, it's El Salvador, so it's not a major, trading nation or anything, but it's a big step to accept it as legal tender. A lot of people think it's obviously very dangerous because they have to look for money from the World Bank and whatnot. What that's going to look like with the volatility of Bitcoin in particular. Very interesting. I know that our friend Michael Saylor, he is issuing a $200 million bond. Now, I don't know the details, so I'm going to look at that later on today, which is, once again, very interesting. He's willing to issue a bond that he's going to go buy more Bitcoin. What that product would look like, or what kind of rate he's willing to pay out on that bond, or what's the terms, very, very interesting that anyone would want to do that deal, but maybe he can do it. So just an interesting thing out there that's happening in the space of this wildly interesting space, to say the least.
Yeah, they're important stories to keep an eye on, especially, I mean, if you follow the kind of cyclical patterns of Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies, it looks like they go through these standard waves of these great big spikes in popularity. I mean, everyone can remember back in 2016 when everyone was talking about Bitcoin, and that was the first time a lot of people were going, wait, what the hell's Bitcoin? What are you talking about? And then it went completely dead for a couple of years, and there wasn't much around it. And then you see it pop up again. And so it goes through these cycles, but I think this most recent cycle has put it so far into the mainstream that it's not going to quite disappear the way it did, let's say, back in 2018, where it kind of fell off of most people's radars. I think now it's back on the radar, and I don't think it's leaving. So it's going to be interesting to see how, El Salvador is a great example. Different governments go about implementing and getting involved with it. We've kind of openly expressed our thoughts that, Bitcoin's just probably the trial run until we end up getting a Fed coin of some sort. Yeah. Which, the American government's already said that they will do at some point. But so it's an interesting thing to keep on your radar. You always be looking and trying to learn more information about and see how exactly it's all going to shape out, what the long-term ramifications of it can be.
Yeah, and what I'm hoping is that people start to kind of, like anything in life, is patch it together, kind of like a crime novel or a private investigator, where you start to see all of these pieces, how they fit together in this future vision of the world. And how, yes, cryptos get bashed in because of their energy consumption. It takes a lot of energy to create one. But the argument is that it's forcing people into paying attention to energy, to focus on this new energy, which will hopefully be more efficient, more effective, more reliable. It's a lot of hopes, but if we're applying the money and everyone gets on board, then yes, it could be that it's cheaper in the long run. That's a whole other conversation. That is a great conversation we could have a whole episode on. But the whole point of this is to get people thinking about all of these plans, to see where they're coming from, the bigger people talking about them, and then to think, okay, I can see this. It's not, once again, it's not us just talking about things randomly. It's pulling out the news and showing people how these things fit together. That's more of the thing that I find appealing and interesting, and it's more of that mindset to see, how do I make money off this? And it isn't always just deliberately just go buy Bitcoin. That is not something I'm doing, and you can choose whatever you want to do. But to me, it just is. It emphasizes the path we're going, and then how can I think of who supplies? How does Bitcoin make the money? How do they make a coin? And they need a lot of copper for that. They need a ton of copper.
That they sure do. Yeah, it's about interpreting all of these different things that are happening, right? We know that this is happening. We know this is the agenda that's being put forward. So you interpret that, and position yourself for success based off that information. That's all you can do, and that's all we try to do, you and I as well, is put this information in front of people and say, look, here's our interpretation of it. We may be totally wrong. I don't think we are, but this is our interpretation of how this is escaping out, and this is how I think we can position ourselves to best set us up for success going forward.
And also, as a side note for our other energy friends that are in the oil and gas side, this does not mean the death knell to your business right now. I mean, they're literally coming out saying it maybe in 30 years or 40 years, but they're also saying it'll be drastically decreased. So this is why you're not seeing, oil and gas being hit in the commodities markets at all. And you're going to see an amazing need, especially for gas, moving forward. So once again, there's a disconnect from the story and then the reality of what we can do today as well. So, and I like to reiterate that to people, is that we're not there. We aren't at this idea that we could be, carbon neutral. I mean, maybe we can at some point far down the road. It's going to take a lot of technology. It's going to take a lot of R&D, which is great because this is what we like from the plant. And it's going to take a hell of a lot of mining, which people are going to have to accept and get used to. And it's going to take a lot of work. So, but in the meantime, that's still a heck of a lot of oil and gas that's going to be required. So it doesn't have to be at the expensive one. It is saying that we are shifting though. And people are going to have to come to terms with, if you're shifting from one energy solution of oil and gas, you have to be talking about uranium and nuclear, which we're going to have to get around to that, getting comfortable with that notion, because we simply are not there, but we're heading in the right direction. So a lot to take in. We'll keep on talking about these. These are the themes we always talk about, and we're going to reiterate them more and more. But if you want to know more, or if you have any suggestions for us or any critics or comments, reach out to us. We'd love to hear. Most of our comments and whatnot, we answer from email. So send us an email, reach out to us. We'd love to hear more.
Yep, absolutely. Always looking forward to engaging with people and happy to discuss anything that we talk about, or happy to hear new ideas as well. If someone comes across something and says, hey guys, I'd love your opinion on this. If we don't have an opinion on it, we'll do our research. We'll try to come to our best conclusion that we can and answer those questions for you. So yeah, always open to engaging with people and hearing what everyone has to say on everything that we're thinking and talking about.
Excellent. And also reach out to us for any of those clips. If you want to know other people that we look to and listen to and like, happy to send you in that direction. I always say, listen, the world that I'm working in is there's lots of big people. There's lots of exceptionally bright people that I listen to, that I love, that I like, and I get lots of source data from. So reach out. We want to hear from you. Have a great day. Thanks, Austin, so much for filling us in on a lot of these stories. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Andrew. Take care and have a good one.